welcome back into another edition of the Fantasy Authority podcast. I am your host, Kevin Steele. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyWrath13. Joined, as always, with his glorious mane that hasn't been cut, the quarantine cut, Cody Kutzer. You can find him on Twitter at CKutzerFF. And we are joined tonight by a very special guest. Took some time to get him on, but he's a busy man, and we really appreciate having him. It's Ray Garvin. You can find him on Twitter at RayGQ. You can also catch his work over at Destination Devi, where he puts out a lot of good stuff on YouTube. Love that channel. And as well, you can find him over at DLF. How's it going tonight, Ray?
Oh man, I'm hanging in there. I was telling these guys before the show, 6-month-old and the 3-year-old at home, it's pure chaos, but hanging in there and really, really excited that we're going to get some football here in the next couple of days.
Oh, I hear that. It's much needed something to get our minds off of everything that's going on. So we're really looking forward to that. The draft is a week from Thursday. So we'll actually get something new to talk about because we've pretty much been talking about these dudes for a couple of months now. We had a little bit with free agency, but other than that, it's been pretty much this. So at least we'll actually have landing spots to put these guys in.
Yeah, we need the draft. The draft is coming here to rescue us. Could you imagine what we would be doing right now if we didn't have this draft coming up? Like, man, this is you want to talk about blessings, man. It's the NFL draft is coming to rescue us, and just excited that's only a week away. Like it seems like everything has gone so slow, but how quickly everything has come up upon us. So just excited, man. We have a Denzel Mims, a Brian Edwards, and a Cam Akers enthusiast with us. So we're in good company, feeling warm. I'm safe. I'm cozy. Even though this look, I might record a hostage video or maybe do something with the grandma perm. I don't know. The possibilities around this with this look, man.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about this draft is we've been so excited for this 2020 class for, I don't know how long we've been talking about these prospects. So then the year that they finally, declare and come out and there's all this stuff that's supposed to be happening, it's going to be the first ever virtual draft. Teams are worried that they're going to screw stuff up. It's so poetic that this class that we've built up, all of this is happening right now. That's another interesting layer to this entire process.
Yeah, we were talking about it before, how it's just going to be so different that we don't have all the pro day rumors and who likes who and who's coming out and, what team has been going over this guy and that guy and everything else. So I think we're set for a wild ride, and it's first ever virtual draft, like Ray said, and it's going to be the first draft that we have such little information on. So I think we're in for a bunch of surprises, and that's always going to be fun.
No, absolutely. So why don't we just jump right into it? We got a lot of guys to talk about. Like tonight we're going to be talking about the top wide receivers in this class. Basically what we did was, Ray, we took your top 12 wide receivers, your top 12 rankings over on DLF, and we figured we'll talk about those guys, and then we'll dig a little bit deeper on some of these other guys. The one thing that stands out to me with this position is just how deep it is. With the running backs, it's very top heavy. And same with quarterback, I guess, and same with tight end, just a dumpster fire. But as far as the wide receiver group, like, you could get down to 11 or 12 and still be really excited about that guy. And you don't feel like you're just kind of like wasting your time talking about him because maybe they'll never be anything in the NFL. You can even go maybe a little bit further than that. And I feel like if you look at a lot of people's rankings, there's a lot of guys that are kind of jumbled around where some people may have somebody at 9, but for other people, they have them at 15, and everything else. So I think that's the most interesting thing about this class. And do you think that this might be the best rookie class we've ever seen among wide receivers?
That's tough. That's a tough one because I was super high on this class, and I was one of the people, going into the 2019 season that thought this class could be amongst the best ever. I don't know if I don't know if it's that. I really don't. I think it's a very, very, very good class, and I think it's very diverse too. If you want the big-bodied wide receivers, you have them in the draft. If you want the the slot wide receiver, you have that. If you want the speedster that can stretch the field, every category of wide receiver is in this class. But I don't know if it's going to be, I don't even know if it's going to be 2014, if I'm being honest. I hope it is. I hope it is. And I know we'll dive into some players that definitely have the talent to be that. But I mean, that's a high threshold and a high bar to even get to ever. They got to beat 2014, this year.
Right. I mean, that class had Sammy Watkins, Odell Beckham, Allen Robinson was in that.
Mike Evans.
I mean,
yeah,
you're right. I mean, that class was super deep. With this class, I feel like maybe it may be missing that true alpha, we're no question about it, beast. But I think that overall, there's certainly elite level talent here, and like we said, I think it's just so deep, and I think there's conversations of 6-7 wide receivers going in the first round. I mean, that is pretty crazy in itself, because typically that's much higher than you normally see. And as of things stand, it looks like we're probably not going to see any running backs go in the first round, which maybe NFL teams are finally getting smart there.
Yeah, I mean, 6-7 deep, that's a potential. That's a potential reality. And it is deep. I think the class is very deep. So, teams want to score points. Everybody wants that Kansas City Chiefs model where you've got those speedsters out there. You've got, 3-4 wide receiver sets. The Rams did it a lot. So teams are looking for that. So the days of just having 2 are out of the window. You want 3 legitimate wide receivers and potentially a legitimate 4th as well. So I think you can definitely see it. You got to score points in today's NFL.
No, I 100% agree. And there's just a lot of different skill sets in this draft as well, where you have some big body guys, you have some guys that are much more in the NFL frame that we're seeing now. But I guess to start out the conversation versus here, is there any landing spots that you're just super hyped about that you think that can make if the right player goes there, can make an immediate impact day one in terms of fantasy?
Yeah, absolutely. And in this first team, I know it sounds gross. I know it's going to sound gross, but the New York Jets, I think you give Sam Darnold, whether it's CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, T. Higgins, I think that wide receiver steps in from day one and is potentially trying to be that alpha. Who's he got to beat out? Crowder, Perryman? I would bet on the talent of a Lamb, of a Jeudy, of a Rager to win that in a training camp. So I think the New York Jets would be just the home run spots. The Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, the Eagles need a wide receiver. I don't think any Eagles fan wants to go into the 2020 season with Jeffrey, Arcega-Whiteside, and Greg Ward. I'm pretty sure that's not the wide receiver core they want to roll out. So you get them, Carson Wentz, another threat down the field when you've already got Ertz and Goddard commanding the middle of the field. I think that's a prime spot for a wide receiver. And then you've got a bunch of other. We could talk about the Broncos. My Las Vegas Raiders, they definitely need an alpha. So those would be, I'd say, the Jets, the Raiders, and whatever the other team that I was talking about. That'd be kind of my 3 ideal landing spots.
I did not know. Our PR department did not tell us that we had a Raiders fan on the podcast. I was not aware of that.
Listen. It's not a lifelong thing. I grew up in Las Vegas. We never thought we'd have a pro team ever. Growing up in high school, it just was not a thought. So when the Raiders transferred or transitioned to Vegas, I said, I don't care what team I'm rooting for. I've got to add them to the lineup. So I am now a recent Las Vegas Raiders fan.
Hey, well, it's a shame that you picked a team that has old Patrick Mahomes in the division, but hey, it's okay. It's okay. I get it. Are you still in Las Vegas now?
No, I'm actually in Dallas, Texas. I've been here for 16 years now, so I'm native Texan, but grew up in Vegas. And don't you worry, we're going to get our Patrick Mahomes. We're going to get our quarterback this draft. Don't worry.
You think they do with this draft?
Probably not. Realistically, Mariota's the second highest paid backup in the league. He's probably going to get a shot to, if not win the job. I'm pretty sure we'll see him sooner rather than later. But I would love for them to take a quarterback in the mid rounds, but I doubt it happens.
Hey, I'm happy not seeing it, to be honest with you. It's easy to pile on Derek Carr. But So actually, I guess we can jump right into it because they are a team that's definitely looking for a wide receiver, right? So I think I've seen a lot of people mock Henry Ruggs going there. You've seen some Jerry Jeudy. You've seen some CeeDee Lamb going there. I guess to start it off, for everybody, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure there's some people that have Jerry Jeudy ahead of CeeDee Lamb, but I think for most people, CeeDee Lamb is kind of the king of the king of the castle here in terms of everything that he's able to do. I mean, he's an absolute freak. I don't think he really blows you away in the measurement department, but it's undeniable the dude is a straight baller on film. And he posted one of the one thing that stood out to me though is whenever I was kind of digging into him for the first time is he posted one of the lowest contested catch rates, which shocked me because when I sat there and watched the dude, like the dude was had that my ball mentality, would go up and get it. Is that any sort of concerning to you at all?
You you would like for it to be higher, right? Of course, 6'1", but I'm not as concerned, right? I mean, he produced as a true freshman at Oklahoma. He produced as a sophomore with Marquise Hollywood Brown. He produced this year by himself, his freshman season when he was with Hollywood. So everything that he does well, I am more than comfortable taking that over the few things that he doesn't do as well right now. I don't think it's anything that CD won't be able to learn, won't be able to kind of work on and improve on at the next level. But I mean, I am zero concerns about CeeDee Lamb. And it's funny you mentioned him kind of. I always say that I said all season that CeeDee Lamb was the fastest, not that fast guy in the country because it doesn't look like he's moving that fast, but he's consistently pulling away from defenders and making plays after the catch. So yeah, man, long-winded answer to say I'm not that concerned.
Yeah, Kev sent me the graphic that's up on the screen right now. When I saw the contested catch rate, I literally just said to him, that's not right? Like, like there's like you have a typo on there, man. There's no way that it's only 38.5%, but especially because we talk about that mentality and how he attacks the ball, and we see him go up and get it. So like that's something that kind of threw me off. But I mean, I'm not worried about it either. And Ray, that was a really good point you made about the fastest, not fast guy. If you look at the athletic profile from how he measured out at the combine, really not that impressive. But when you see him with the ball in his hand, man, he glides. He's so good after the catch. So I'm really excited to finally get these landing spots next week and start talking about the impact they're going to have and how they fit into the scheme of whatever team drafts them.
I will say this. I think it's an interesting point to make that, like, if you were just digging in on this guy and you weren't a big film guy and you just were looking at like athletic measurables, he definitely wouldn't stand out to you. You wouldn't be like, I don't understand what everybody's talking about this guy. Like, look at this guy. I mean, you saw the graphic or whatever, but I mean, his 40-yard dash was 4.5, which is nothing to sneeze about. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But, speed score is not great. It's average. His burst score is 47th percentile. Like, you look at those things, and if you were just digging in and like weren't really, in tune with everything that's going on, if you weren't on Twitter and everything else, I don't know how excited you would be about CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, I think once you turn on the tape and start watching him, like, you can see what everybody else sees with them. Because, when I first started digging into this, because I'm not a guy who spends a ton of time watching college football because I spend so much time on DFS and everything else in season and, with everything else. So whenever I first started digging in, I know a lot of people talked about CeeDee Lamb, and it was pre-combine. So when I first turned it on, like, immediately you start watching the guy, like, okay, yeah, this dude's a baller. But if I jumped in now and I started looking at it and I already had the measurables and everything else, I'd be like, I don't know what everybody's so excited about. But it's just something that stood out to me. It was the contested catch rate. So other than that, so I don't think we really need to spend too much time talking about CeeDee Lamb. We can keep going because the next guy I want to talk about, pants are off, boys. I'm ready to talk about some Jalen Reagor. I love Jalen Reagor. From the moment I set eyes on this dude, I started loving him. And one of my favorite moments of this entire draft season so far was whenever you when he was running this 40-yard time, and your reaction to it was priceless.
It was so good.
But yes, but I love Jalen Reagor, and I know that he just did his virtual pro day, and now that we got I know you have to take it a little bit with a grain of salt because it is hand time and everything else, not laser time. But even if you add time to the 4.22, the 4.28, even let's say it's a high 4.3, that's still much better than what he proved at the combine. And I think that he definitely lost some weight, which I think was one of the big problems for him heading into the combine. He put on too much weight. He got some bad advice. And now we see much more of what you see on tape with him in terms of that raw athleticism. Do you agree on that? And is that something that you're taking into consideration?
No, 100%. You know, it's his combine is still one of the most interesting and perplexing results because he started out just crushing everything, right? And I'm not talking about he looked good, he bench pressed a lot, irrelevant, but then he jumps a 42-inch vertical jump, broad jumps 138 inches. At that point, there's no way he doesn't run sub 4.4. I mean, with that type of burst and explosion, there's no way. I mean, I thought I was going to have a fun time on Twitter mocking everybody. And to see his time, I've got 2 points to that. One, it's a crazy world we live in today when a 4.47 is slow, okay? I know a lot of people were taking victory laps like, yeah, I told you he wouldn't. Okay, 4.47 is extremely fast still. But then he performed horribly in the lateral agility drills. I mean, beyond horrible. It shouldn't even be playing a wide receiver position, but you know, you turn on the tape and you see it immediately with this kid. And he's got the pedigree. You know, his dad was a second round pick. His father won a Super Bowl. So he's been around football and competing at the highest level his entire life. And you saw that with a bad TCU team. You saw that with a bad coaching system in his final season. This kid still was out there playing every single week, giving it his all for a bad team. So it's just very interesting, Rager and his athletic testing, the virtual pro day. I mean, all right, we got some more numbers. We know he's not slow. I don't think anybody out there thought he was a 4.5 guy. Like, it's not how he plays.
Yeah, man. So last night I was chopping it up with some of the guys in one of my dynasty leagues. A couple guys you're familiar with, Ray, and one of them being Dwight Peebles, the Peebles champ. And what he wanted me to ask you a question. He wanted to know if you were the one down there at the virtual pro day giving him that 4.22 hand time.
Dwight. I've got no comment, man. I've got no comment. Dwight, I'm gonna text him. This asshole.
Yeah, I was talking to him and J Mike and a couple other guys, and told him that we were getting on with you tomorrow. And he's like, "Man, you got to ask Ray if he was the one that gave him that 4.22 time." I said, "I don't know, man. I think it would have been a 4.19 if Ray were down there."
We got jokes tonight. Okay, I like this. Yeah, it would have been. He would have broken the record. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, it is really a very interesting combine how that played out for him as well as a couple of other people. Just, I don't know, it was weird year.
No, for sure. And it was like the first time, like you mentioned, like when somebody goes out and runs a 4.47, like we're like all of a sudden upset with that. Like people were like, "Oh man, told you guys." It was the opposite. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with a 4.47. It's not like he's like Zach Moss who goes out here and runs a 4.65 or something like that. Like sure, it wasn't what people had expected from him, but I mean, it's still nothing bad about it. Like there was nothing to be alarmed about. So I don't know. I thought it was wild with him. Do you think he ends up going in the first round?
I think he does. I think he does. I think a player with his speed, with his skill set, with his versatility, I think there are teams picking at the back of the first that would pick him. Little insider. I was told by a very credible source, the crediblest of credible sources when it comes to Jalen Reagor, that he's talked to 5 teams who told him if he's there when he's on the clock, he's going round 1. Take that with a grain of salt, but I got that information from probably the most credible Jalen Reagor source there is, that 5 teams he's talked to, if he's there on the board round 1, he's their pick.
It doesn't bode well for you, Kev.
Is one of those teams red and gold by chance?
He didn't tell me, and that's the legit. I didn't even ask, but I didn't even ask what teams that was.
Oh man,
No.
it would be immediate, like pants off.
Yeah.
I'd be naked, buck naked, running around the house if the Kansas City Chiefs select the Jalen Reagor at the.
Yeah,
pick
I'm not feeling that. I would
So-
not. As a Raiders fan, we don't need those problems. We don't need those problems in the division, please.
I mean, because you look at it, I mean, Sammy Watkins is only on a 1-year deal. Marcus Robinson's on a 1-year deal. So they have a lot of players that are going to be coming up. So they're going to need help. So I mean, if they need a wide receiver and Jalen Reagor's there, like if he's on the board when the Chiefs are on the clock, I'm gonna be sweating bullets, hoping that that's who they take.
Is that even like a realistic possibility that they would go wide receiver again? Like in the first round? Would they go wide receiver in the first round? Like really?
So the way I look at them is they're kind of still in that win now mode. That because their 100% goal mission is to repeat, obviously, and that's why they've essentially brought their entire team back on 1-year deals from last year. They're only lost a couple of players that none of them are really any impact for them. But I mean, they've made it their mission to go out and pretty much just sign everybody that they had last year. They brought back, like I said, Demarcus Robinson. They brought back. Sammy Watkins, and then they also brought back Rashad Breeland and Mike Pennell. And so, I mean, that's pretty much the guys they brought back. So could I see it? Yeah, I think they're in the market for a wide receiver, and I think they could be in the market for a running back as well. Because like I said, after this year, I mean, who are they going to – it's basically going to be Tyreek and you have that from there. Then you have McCall Hardman. So, but then I think running back is also in play as well, because of Damian Williams. And then they did bring in DeAndre Washington, which I think is an interesting move. But, I mean, again, those are just guys. So, I think they're still in swing for the fence mode right now. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But I also don't think it's necessary. And I think the number one need they really have is probably at corner or at linebacker for sure.
Reagor there would just be
it'd be
super
overkill.
unfair.
Because I don't know where
unfair.
he'd essentially it'd be a waste of a year, I guess, because I mean he would basically be the 4th option, probably, maybe the 3rd. But probably the 4th or even the 5th option, really, because they're still going to have Demarcus Robinson there, who they paid a decent amount to. They still have McCall Hardman, so I think it would probably be a little overkill. I could see them probably taking somebody in the later rounds, maybe in the 3rd or 4th round, maybe like a Michael Pittman or something like that. But that doesn't really fit the type of player that they really look for, because they're all about speed. But I could see something like that a little bit later in the draft.
I literally can't even imagine. But moving on here, man, Ray, you're wide receiver. You're
Jeez.
Doesn't anybody knock anymore?
Yeah, I know. Good grief. This is live TV here.
That was awesome.
This is unedited. This is real stuff. My wife is trying to come in here. I don't think she's clothed. Do you have on clothes? What do you want me to do? There's no cup in here.
This is gold. This is fantastic.
There's no cup.
This is gold, Jerry. Gold.
There's no cup. What are you doing? What is she? She's messing up gold right here. Sorry, guys.
No, man, that was some comedic relief. That was awesome. But you're wide receiver 3, Jerry Jeudy.
Yep.
A lot of people looking at him as probably the safest receiver just because of his all around skill set. But it almost seems like people are just kind of just plugging him into the slot as if that's all he's going to be. Where do you see him playing? Obviously, he can win in the slot. I think he can win outside too with his releases and his route running and everything else. Do you see him as let's say like a 65-70% slot guy, or do you think he's going to have the outside work as well?
This is a tough one, right? This is because I think he could thrive in the slot. I think Jerry Jeudy, day one in the NFL, he's already going to be one of the most dangerous slot men in the NFL just because of his skill set. But I saw him play enough out wide during his career at Alabama that I think he's going to be just fine outside. The way he releases, the way his ability to stack defensive backs during his routes. A lot of people talk about players having elite acceleration, like Tyreek Hill. Everybody wants that receiver that can go from 0 to 60 like that. But one of the things that I've learned in studying wide receivers and playing against wide receivers in college is it's not always the ability to accelerate. Sometimes it's the ability to decelerate in your routes, right? And Jerry Jeudy has the fastest 60 to 0 that I've seen in a very long time. This dude can be running full speed, plant on a dime, stop for a comeback route, or break his routes in or out. I think he's going to be just fine on the outside. I would love for him to put on a little weight, just put on a little bit of grown man muscle, which I'm sure will happen. But I mean, the dude is a technician running routes. He's a route running. I mean, there aren't many wide receivers coming out of college that move the way Jerry Jeudy does. So I think he'd thrive in the slot, and I think he'll be just fine on the outside.
Do you think that he ends up? I know some people have made the comparison with him that he could he's Calvin Ridley. Do you think that is his ceiling, or do you think? I mean, because it seems like the lazy comp for him. He played at Alabama, and
that's what I was gonna say. That you hear Calvin Ridley, maybe, but it is a lazy comp. It's just they played at Alabama. They've got the similar body size. Calvin Ridley was a great route runner. So I think it's just a very easy comp to make. I don't really know what Jerry Jeudy is. I've thought about it. One thing that I don't do, I'm not just comping players just to comp them, right? If I put a comp on somebody, then I truly believe that wholeheartedly, and I want you to hold me accountable to that. But with Jeudy, I really don't have a good comp for Jeudy right now. Ridley is the easiest and laziest of them. I also think it happens to be a little bit applicable, but I think we can dig a little bit deeper than just stopping at Calvin Ridley for Jeudy.
Ray, one question since you just touched on comps. Whenever you're lining that up, because I think that's where a lot of people get caught with comps. Like a lot of people want to, he's Jerry Rice, just going to be the best thing ever. Or, I just think there's so many different ways you can go about comps. You just said you spent a lot of time with yours. Like how are you doing that? Is it coming from their collegiate profile, how you're projecting them in the NFL? How do you handle comps?
Yeah, first, I think there are two different kind of comps as well. I think there's stylistic comps, what a player may play like, but and then there's physical comps. He may play like Jerry Rice or Calvin Johnson or Des Bryant, but he's got the body size of a Tavon Austin. You know what I mean? So I think there's play style comps, and then there are, of course, physical comps. It starts for me, because I do watch a lot of college football. If I only got to pick one, I'd watch college any day of the week over a professional game. That's what I grew up in. That's what I love. I love everything about it. So it starts back there. It's the film. Like what did I see when I just turned on the tape? What kind of player did I see? And then it's when you get some of the other numbers in, their age-adjusted production. You start looking at some of their testing and athletic measurements. And then I think that's where you formulate a better comp. I think during the season, anytime I comp somebody, it's probably emotional reaction of that collegiate moment. And I'm just saying, oh my gosh, Jalen Waddle is the second coming of Tyreek Hill. You should see how he returned that punt. Don't hold me to those ones. That's just emotion in the moment. But it's definitely a film combination with the advanced analytics and metrics, and then their testing measurables. And then from there, I just figured out my running back comps today, literally today. So it takes a little bit.
No, it definitely makes sense. With Jeudy, when I watched him, he actually, I don't know, this may be outlandish, but I kind of thought that he reminded me of Marvin Harrison when I watched him, and so I don't know. Well, we'll see. I definitely think that him and Lamb and Rager, I think, have incredible ceilings. And then the next guy I think that we want to talk about is, I don't think anybody really expected him to test the way that he tested. If you go back and you look at him heading into it, I think heading into college, he was running like a 4.65 or something like that, and wasn't really expected to have an incredible speed and everything else. But then he comes into the combine and, runs a 4.43 40, excellent speed score, 104.3. Burst score is solid, 126.8. I mean, again, like this dude, like to me, feels like he should be at least somewhere in the same vicinity of the tier of these other guys with what he's been able to do. Now, I know one knock against him, again, something similar to Jeudy, is even more so, is he played 78% of the snaps from the slot. Almost all of his production came from the slot as well. He had the most slot receptions with 109. He also had the most slot yards with 1,500. Almost all of his yards came from the slot, right? But yeah, I mean, and there's something to be said that, in that Joe Brady offense there at LSU, that offense was incredible. But I'm not going to take anything away from him because he was able to produce, especially with some of the other talent that was there as well. But I absolutely love Justin Jefferson, and I think that he is, like, I could see myself, putting him a little bit higher than, I could, if somebody put him at 3, but I think, no, he deserves to be no less than 4 in my book. But I think he is somebody that can easily walk into a situation and immediately step right onto the field and produce day one. He's not somebody I think is going to be a project, because I think he is a solid route runner. And if he's a guy that ended up in Philly, I would be absolutely thrilled for that.
I don't even know where to begin, because you and I we're lock and key right here. I'm feeling everything that you just said, and it's a lot, because, and let me correct you, right? 4.6? No. Jefferson had a verified high school 40 time of 4.88. Verified. It's still up on ESPN. He was running a 4.8 in high school. How on earth I thought 4.6 would have been like, that's a win. If he hits like 4.59, like N'Keal Harry did last year, 4.6, after believing that he ran a 4.88, I would have been fine with that. So to go out there and run a 4.43 40-yard dash, I didn't see it coming. And the funny thing about this is, if you type in Justin Jefferson 40 time, like in Google, he didn't think he was going to run it. He said the 40 time surprised him. Which is crazy, right? But my thing with Jefferson and why I like him so much is everybody is super excited about Jamar Chase, as we should be. Won the Biletnikoff as the nation's best receiver last year with 1,700 receiving yards. I think he had 80-something receptions. Justin Jefferson in his own right, 111 grabs for over 1,500 yards and 18 TDs. I don't care if he got it in the slot, out of the backfield, in the parking lot. I don't care where he got it. He got it, all right, 1,500 yards and 18 TDs. But then that's coming off of a season where in 2018, LSU was not good. And Justin Jefferson still had over 800 receiving yards. I think his market share receptions was over 25%. Market share percentage of the receiving yards was over 30%. I mean, he was still productive as a true sophomore. So he, for me, is my wide receiver 4. Love him. I think outside of CeeDee Lamb, he's the safest wide receiver in the draft. I think from day one, you're getting a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 at worst on an NFL team. And I think he's going to contribute right away. Not saying he's a top 12 or a top 24 wide receiver, but I think he's going to contribute in fantasy right away. I love everything about his game.
Yeah, but people talk about slot receiver like it's still a bad thing. Like there's some like negative connotation that goes with it. With today's NFL running 3 wide receiver sets, like you can run your passing game through the slot. And it's not like, I don't look at Jefferson as like, oh, well, he's going to have that like 5-yard A dot. He's just going to be one of those compilers. Like he can get deep. He can win. He obviously has the long speed that admittedly surprised everybody, but I mean, he didn't have that 4.8 high school speed on his LSU tape either. Right. So that's one. And it's Ray, whenever you mentioned Philly for one of the landing spots at the beginning of the pod, that's immediately where I went, was Justin Jefferson going to Philly. And like every year, like last year, obviously not necessarily fantasy related, but we had Garrett Bradbury to the Vikings. Like that seemed to be one of the things that was need and talent and draft capital all lined up. That happened. And I think that's kind of the same case here with Jefferson going to Philly.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp plays in the slot. Chris Godwin plays in the slot. Larry Fitzgerald plays in the slot. Like
Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen plays in the slot. When teams are going out investing on the defensive side of the ball, slot corners, it matters, right? Tyler Boyd out of the slot. I mean, teams are literally drafting defensive backs because they specialize playing in the slot, because it's a completely different world playing in there opposed to having the sideline on either side of the field to help you out. So I don't care where I don't care where he gets it. Slot, outside, Jefferson's a stud.
No, I 100% agree. And, if he lands in Philly, I'll be 6 to midnight real quick. I love that.
Man, Kev, you realize we're doing a live draft show, right? Like you can't be doing this.
No, it's going to be live. We're going to be doing – fuck it. We're doing it live. We're doing the whole thing live, both days. It's going to be fantastic. And when the Chiefs draft Zach Moss, I'm just going to jump off. I'm going to just jump through my window.
Something, they're going to take some random ass running back. I'm telling you, it's going to be like LaMichael P. Ryan or somebody wild.
And he's immediately going to become a back end round 1 rookie draft pick.
Oh, yeah.
The worst part, though, is I hate Zach Moss. I don't hate him. I shouldn't say that. That's strong. But I'm not a fan of Zach Moss, at least compared to everybody else. And I have shit on this dude, right, as a prospect, right? And I know it's going to happen.
It's called
because
karma.
One of the few things we know who the Chiefs have visited is Zach Moss.
Really?
The
Really?
Chiefs have met with Zach Moss at the combine. They met with him. They've met with him at a virtual test. It's gonna happen. I can almost feel it. They're gonna announce it in the 2nd or 3rd round, and I'm just gonna hate my life, and I'm just gonna have to I'm gonna shotgun a beer right on our live show.
And by shotgun a beer, you mean fall to your knees and cry, right?
Yes, fetal position. It's going to happen. It's karma that's going to come right back at me, and I'm going to have to just take it. And everybody from that moment is going to be like, yep, they got their next Kareem Hunt, which is another lazy take that people have. But that's what people are going to say. He's going to be the 101, and it's just going to be the worst.
Oh, that's terrible. I got a comp for Zach Moss, and that damn sure ain't Kareem Hunt.
Monty Ball?
What is it?
Jamal Williams. I think that would be a win for him.
Actually, that's a good one.
If he became Jamal Williams, I think that'd be a win for Zach Moss.
Kevin, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't wish that on you, but since we're doing this live, we need it hashtag for the content. So I'm sorry, man, but you have to be the sacrificial lamb for the brand and for the content, man.
I don't want it. I don't want any part of it.
But that we spent enough time on Zach Moss there. That was about 59 seconds too long. Ray, you're wide receiver 5 and somebody that I've been super excited about from the beginning of this when I first started breaking some of these guys down. Denzel Mims, obviously showed up at the combine, stole everybody's hearts. There was somebody who does, I can't remember what his name is, but he does work with the NFL Network on their specifically their draft stuff, and he put out a tweet a couple weeks leading up to the combine saying that Mims was someone he could see running that sub 4.4, and I was just like, dude, if that happens, his rookie draft stock is just going to completely skyrocket, and obviously that's what's happened here. I do think he needs some polishing. He's not the most polished receiver, but I feel like with all of the physical tools that he has, I think it's on the extreme end of his ceiling and of his range of outcomes. But I mean, would it really surprise anybody if he put up a couple of seasons that were the best out of this rookie class? That I kind of see that as, like I said, extreme end of his range of outcomes, but. What would you want to see from Denzel Mims at the next level for him to take that next step? What kind of things do you think that he has to work on, if anything?
Yeah, I'm a big Mims fan. I think he's a talented wide receiver. He's, much like all of these guys, he's an unfinished product, right? There's still a lot of things that he can do to improve upon it. And things is, his route running, and I think his his recognition of defenses at times and Baylor's scheme is much like Oklahoma's, where they do a really good job of scheming their wide receivers. And once Denzel Mims got into a space, he's bigger and he's faster and he's more athletic than everybody else that he's playing against. Little bit of I've got to be honest here. Today I was shoring up some of my rankings and I actually moved Denzel Mims down just a spot, but I did move T. Higgins back up to my wide receiver 5. So for the difference between 5 and 4, 5 and 6 it's negligible at this point. But I do think Mims has, I don't know if he is number 1 for team upside, but I think he can be like a very, very, very strong wide receiver 2 for a team, and maybe even play that wide receiver 1B role. Sort of, I look back to Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams, right? We all knew Devontae Adams had it, but Jordy had to get out of the way. As long as Jordy was there, he was the guy. So I can see him playing like a strong wide receiver 2 for a team. I don't know if I'm seeing wide receiver 1. I don't know if you'd want that. I don't know. I thought Michael Gallup could potentially be that when the Cowboys, I'm a Cowboys fan as well, drafted him, but I think he's just better in that number 2 role, in that complementary wide receiver role. And I think that's Denzel Mims. I like him a lot, but I think that's where he fits in best.
So when I watch him, I mean, it's hard to deny the things that he's able to do. I mean, if you look at him, like, I think 1.5% of his production came from not from the slot, but from screens, which was, I think, the least in the class. He's second most contested catches with 20. I mean, there's a lot to like about him when you look at it. When you look at his profile, like, he kind of felt like a more explosive, more athletic Kenny Golladay to me, of kind of what he can do. And I think he needs to be in the right system with the right quarterback, and I think if that happens, that's going to fully unlock him, especially utilizing him deep down the field. And I think if that happens, I do think that he's somebody that would not surprise me if he ends up being one of the best wide receivers in this class.
Oh, okay. I don't hate it. It wouldn't shock me either if we look back 3 years from now and we say that Denzel Mims, like, we should have had him up there at number 1 or close to number 1. It wouldn't surprise me. He's got the athletic. There's nothing in his game that should be disliked. The things that are his negatives right now are teachable things that he's going to learn at the next level. They're going to learn how to identify coverages, sit down where they're supposed to sit down. They're going to learn how to, separate off the line of scrimmage and create space for themselves. Everything about how he plays and his athletic profile, he's a rock star. He's legit. I just like a couple of receivers better than him, just a couple.
So speaking of the other wide receiver that you just mentioned, I have to ask about him, because for me, I have tried to like T. Higgins, right? I've really tried, and I'm like, I got to see what everybody else sees. Like, I want to know. So I've watched the tape. I've looked at it. He's not an athletic dude, but I'm not going to sit there and try to hold that against him. He has the numbers. He has the production. That's one of the most translatable things for any wide receiver is production. So I see all that, but I watch him play. I'm just not blown away by him. I'm not wowed by him at all. And what is it that everybody else sees that I don't? Because obviously I'm wrong a lot. And so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, right? But with him, I'm just not excited. I feel like I could have 10 wide receivers ahead of him that I would rather have. And maybe I'm wrong for that. And maybe he ends up landing in just an absurd spot that's fantastic for him and his skill set. But right now for me, when I've watched him, I just haven't been all that excited about him. And maybe it's from initially knowing that he wasn't going to test well, and then him sitting out and not doing the combine kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. Maybe I have some bias. I don't know. But what is it that you see about him that you like so much to have as your number 5 wide receiver?
And let me just ask you, where do you have Higgins ranked for you right now?
So for me, I would probably have him probably around 9 or 10, I think, is probably where I would have him. I think there's other guys in this class that I value more. I like Brandon Aiyuk and what he brings to the table. I think he's more of a traditional wide receivers in today's sense of what you're looking for. I think you're going to have, as much as we'll get to Henry Ruggs next, but I think he's got to probably be somewhere ahead of him because of his skill set and what he's able to do. Again, I think he is much more landing spot dependent. I don't want to kind of go through all the guys, but like I think he's much more landing spot dependent. If he lands at a wrong spot, which we'll talk about, I think that could really hurt him. And then like I said, him and there's another guy like Michael Pittman I really like. And I think
Mike Pittman.
He's another guy that I think that if you look at them two, like they both do a lot of the same things, but I think Pittman's a little bit more athletic than he is overall. I think he has strong. I think Michael Pittman is not valued enough for what he was able to do. His hands are terrific. I think he only had like 5 droppable passes on 175 targets or something like that. So there's lots like there. Brian Edwards is another guy that I absolutely love. So it's just there's all these wide receivers that I could see myself if I was in a rookie draft like that I would take before I ever got to T. Higgins. And I think most people would take him before me, so it would never be my problem to have to really worry about. But for you, what is it that you love so much about him?
So when I'm looking at T, right, it's first of all, he's 6'4", 215, and he may not have tested like a Denzel Mims. He may not have tested like this uber elite athlete, but he's good on the field. He's very, very fluid to be so big. And I went back and, I said I was finalizing my rankings today. The physical wide receiver at the point of catch. Like I know his contested catch rate is probably 55%. When the ball is in the air and it's around him, he's catching it. I don't see T. Higgins drop a lot of passes. I've never seen him do that. He's to be so big and quote unquote lean at that 216. I just think there's so much room for growth for his body because he knows how to use his body to win. Like he knows how to use his body to shield defenders, to make catches. He's physical. You could see that run against LSU in the national championship game when he's running over safeties and he had a 70-yard touchdown catch called back on some BS. I mean, I've seen him play against Bryce Hall, one of the top cornerbacks in the 2020 class pre-injury, and absolutely rocked Virginia for 3 touchdowns in the first half. I mean, everybody in the world thought T. Higgins was going to take a backseat to Justin Ross this year. Justin Ross is a talented 2021 prospect, but T went back out there and just dominated again. He broke out at an early age. He can catch the deep ball. He's good at tracking passes. The reason why some of his raw stats aren't as high as maybe some others in this class, I mean, Clemson, once they got up by a couple of touchdowns, Dabo was pulling the offense off of the field. And as much as we talk about LSU's offense being good and all those numbers they put up, the reason why the offense was on the field is because the defense was so bad that they were getting scored on by some dude named Plumlee from Ole Miss, and they had to keep scoring points. So I like T. Higgins' game. I think his skill set fits certain NFL teams. And for me, one of the most important things in this whole process is draft capital. I think T. Higgins is going to get the draft capital to matter. He's going to get an opportunity, and I think with that opportunity, he's probably going to shine.
I think whenever you watch T. Higgins, he doesn't have the the horizontal separation of somebody like Jeudy. So whenever you're watching him, you're not like, oh man, he just really fucked that corner up. Like you see he left him 5 yards behind. But there's not a ball that you're throwing to T. Higgins that isn't in his catch radius. And for he might not have that long speed, but the thing I like about T is that he's able to get to his top speed quickly. Like he's able just to take those 2 steps and he's reaching his top speed and he's going. So that's something that I think whenever I saw stuck out to me. There was you mentioned the one game against Virginia. So in 2019 game, there was a catch on the left sideline where it gets broken up and bobbled. He catches it, immediately turns, and he's getting upfield. And before you know it, it ended up being a 30-yard catch. And you're looking there, you're like, there's no way he just ran 30 yards in that amount of time. But I think he is a little landing spot dependent because you're going to have to get that quarterback that's willing to throw into tight spaces. It's willing to throw those jump balls and those back shoulders and things like that. But I think as long as the NFL teams are going to know that, right? You know what I mean? Like they're not going to draft T thinking like, all right, we're going to get him separated and get him going horizontal and things like that. So Ray, like you said, if he gets that draft capital that we're all expecting, I'm still excited about him. but he doesn't have that. Like I said, like comparing him to like a Jeudy, which is completely unfair because they're not the same kind of receivers. But whenever you watch them, Jeudy will just leave you big, like holy shit, like he just did that. And unless he's going up above the rim, or man, there's a play I can't think of where he was playing. There's a throw down the middle of the field. He goes up and gets it between two defenders, and then he nearly scores. I can't remember which game it was. He nearly scores, but he's physical. He's running away from them. He eventually gets tackled, maybe like around like the 5 or something like that. But that was one of those plays that stuck out to me, along with that one from Virginia from this past year.
The one versus Texas A&M was one of the prettiest ones I've seen. That sideline catch, it's just when the ball is in the air, it's almost Des Bryant-esque. Des Bryant was one of the best, just contortionist of his body, go get those jump balls, just kind of glide in the air. T. Higgins, when the ball is in the air around him, he's coming down with it 9 times out of 10. I do think he does have some limitations, right? He's not playing in the slot. He's going to be an outside receiver. He is going to have to work on defeating press coverage because he didn't face a lot of that at Clemson. So I do get why some people, and he's probably not like the fastest athlete. I'm not going to say he's not an athlete, but he's not some blazer on the field. But I really like how he goes, attacks, passes, and after the catch, he's not CeeDee Lamb, but he's very good after the catch. He does get caught a lot at the 5-yard line. That has happened more times than not, but he's really good after the catch.
So, Ray, just real quick before we move on, you were talking about Dabo pulling the guys in the second half because they're ahead. His second half splits from 2019, he had 11 catches for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I didn't even know that. I swear I did not know that. I was hoping and praying that it wasn't opposite of what I just said.
I got
you. Based on watching Clemson, it doesn't. So they didn't fucking play in the second half. They didn't play.
11 catches.
That's crazy. Wow.
So I guess from transitioning on from a guy who may not be an athlete with his 14% burst score, 14 percentile burst score, to a guy who has all of the athleticism, 100 percentile 40-yard dash, 110 speed score, which is 90th percentile, and 136.9 98th percentile burst score. Henry Ruggs is another fascinating guy here because he doesn't have a breakout age, which is crazy. He only has a 17.5 dominator rating. So it's a guy who is uber athletic, who everybody likes to, or I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people like to compare to Tyreek Hill, which again, I think is lazy because Tyreek Hill is more of a unicorn than anything. And one thing with Henry Ruggs is we typically see wide receivers who are sub 190, which he's right up there on the brink of it. He's 188. That don't really perform well outside of Tyreek Hill, or who don't put up the numbers that we're looking for. But with Henry Ruggs, like the thing is, we can all not like Henry Ruggs or not be as high on Henry Ruggs as everybody else is. But when he goes the first wide receiver off the board or the second wide receiver off the board, like draft capital matters. And the one landing spot that I'm more nervous about, not nervous about, that I would hate to see him go would be the Las Vegas Raiders. Because I do not think that Derek Carr can utilize him correctly and that has the arm strength to, or I shouldn't say the arm strength, but has the want to go deep, to hit him deep. Now, I know that's not only Henry Ruggs' game, is just being a deep threat, but I think early on, I think that's where teams are going to want to use him. And if he goes to a landing spot to a quarterback who is not going to want to get him the ball, who is a first read only guy, like Derek Carr is a lot, I think that's what makes me nervous about Henry Ruggs. If that's where he were to land in the first round, I don't think that's the best landing spot for him.
Yeah, I wouldn't want it either. As a Raiders fan, I don't want to see him there. I don't think that'd be good for him and his development as a receiver, and I don't think it'd be good for the Raiders because we don't have a quarterback, either the backup or the starter, who want to push the ball down the field like that, which right now is Henry Ruggs' best asset, his best skill set. I feel double counting. I feel like a lot of people, probably NFL teams, were double counting with Henry Ruggs. Who didn't think he was fast? Like, You know what I mean? Like, who were we shocked that he ran a 4.27, 4.28, whatever it was? Like, nobody was shocked. If we were shocked, it was because we thought he was going to run even faster and break the record. So why are we? I just feel like he's being double counted. You could watch 2 seconds on Twitter of Henry Ruggs dunking a basketball in high school, and knowing that he was going to jump high in the vertical jump and jump far in the broad jump. But he's going to be the first wide receiver taken in the NFL draft. That I think he is, and draft capital matters. So therefore, we've got to pay attention. But I won't be drafting him on any fantasy team unless it's best ball. I just don't. I don't see. I think you're looking at another Ted Ginn, Marquise Goodwin, where we get excited about, and they serve a better purpose in real life to help their team win as the deep threat. As he's not Tyreek Hill. Stop it. Let's not even go there, right? He's not Tyreek Hill. I think he's a Marquise Goodwin. I think he's a Ted Ginn Jr. He's going to help a team tremendously because it's going to open up things underneath. You got to respect that speed over the top. But for fantasy, I think you're looking at an inconsistent player. And what's going to happen? Watch, mark my words. Week 1, he's going to go out there, catch 4 passes for 150 yards and 2 TDs. And I told you Henry Ruggs, and then he's going to go 3 or 4 weeks and catch like a ball, 2 passes. It's going to be inconsistent. He's going to be boom or bust. Draft capital matters, but I won't be paying the cost for him in Dynasty.
Well, we've done some of this stuff too. Like, I mean, it's not a 1-for-1 comp, but like a Corey Coleman type was super athletic coming out. Everybody was super excited about him. And, it just didn't work out. We've seen it. Look, John Ross, another guy, has top 10 draft capital. Now, I think John Ross may be finally starting to figure it out. We saw this past year. We'll see. But, like, we've seen it. Just because a guy goes in the first round, like, it's certainly something to take into consideration. They're obviously going to get much more opportunity and much more chances to succeed in the NFL because he's a first-round pick and things of that nature. But, like you said, like, I would have no interest taking him either, just because I don't think he's ever going to be a reliable fantasy asset. And if he ends up going to one of these teams, which I fear that's what's going to end up happening, he's going to go to a team that's going to kind of tank his value, because he needs to go to a system and a quarterback that has that DGAF attitude that I don't give a fuck and I'm just going to throw it. Something like Patrick Mahomes or quarterbacks like that have the arm to do that. If he goes to Oakland, I think it's a death sentence for him.
Man, imagine him with Jameis Winston, just YOLO balls. You know what I mean? He needs one of those kind of quarterbacks.
Or Josh Allen, maybe. Obviously, they're not going to do that now. They don't, they don't have the capital. But he needs one of those guys that can get underneath the ball that Josh Allen obviously throws 50 yards too far down the field.
Yeah, I mean I think that's what you need.
Well, he's frozen.
I mean, you guys touched on everything with Ruggs. The only thing I'll say, I do have him in the same range that Ray has him, kind of in that 6, 7, 8 range. The thing with me for him, and I think Ray touched on this perfectly, was the people that are pushing him up to wide receiver 1, 2, wherever that is. I don't think that they're accounting for his range of outcomes. And I think that Marquise Goodwin, Ted Ginn could be in his range of outcomes. Like, I truly do. But I don't think the people that are having him as wide receiver 1 overall, and there are NFL draft people and fantasy people that have him there, I don't think they're accounting for the real possibility that Marquise Goodwin, Ted Ginn is in his floor of outcomes. And the thing for me, if I'm looking at a guy that I'm thinking about taking for fantasy purposes or NFL purposes as wide receiver 1, is I want an alpha that I don't have to scheme for, that I can just throw out there and just say, go do your thing, go get it. And with Ruggs, now, can he develop that? Of course he can. And I think that's something where a lot of us get caught on both sides, is trying to account for how much they're going to progress at the next level. Like a lot of people like to think like, oh, they're going to go to an NFL team. That immediately means they're going to get faster, put on weight. They're going to get better. Their skill set's going to expand. And that's not necessarily always the case. But with Ruggs, as of right now, as it stands, I think he needs to be scheme the ball. And I'm not taking a guy as a first wide receiver off the board that I have to do that with.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a good move, because if he lands on a team like the Raiders, a team like the Jets, he's probably going to be asked to be that guy, right? They're probably expecting him, hey, we're drafting you number 11 overall, number 12 overall. We want you to develop into that one right away. And I don't think he's that. I don't think he's close to that yet. You know, if he was asked to run the full complementary of routes and win in different situations and go up against number one corner Stephon Gilmore's, playing against these teams with Tyrann Mathieu sitting there at safety or slot, I just don't think he's ready for that yet. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I don't know. I guess I'll have to see. I think it's really going to depend on where he lands and everything else. I could end up seeing, if you want to compare anything to Tyreek Hill with him, I think that maybe you see him utilized similar to what Tyreek Hill was his rookie year, where Tyreek Hill was kind of used everywhere. They lined him up in the backfield. They put him in the slot. They designed plays for him. If he goes into a system like that, I can see that's how he's utilized early. But I don't have a lot of confidence that he's going to be somebody that year one that you're going to be able to have a lot of confidence in sticking into your fantasy lineup. So,
and real quick to that Tyreek Hill point, one of the things that Hill did so well that Henry Ruggs has zero experience doing is being a special teamer, returning punts and kicks. Like it seemed like he was returning a punt for a touchdown every damn week, right? And then I'm sure Kansas City at some point was like, "Yo, we got to get this dude. Let's get him acclimated on the offense." Henry Ruggs, I think he returned like a punt in his career, in his entire career. He's not a punt returner, wasn't a kick returner really at Alabama. So he can't even, if he's not getting on the field at receiver right away, what is he going to do? He can't return punts and kicks for you. I mean, do you really want your first round pick wide receiver returning kicks in the first place? I don't know.
That seems crazy to me too. Someone with his kind of athleticism and speed that they never lined him up as a punt returner. Maybe that says more about him than anything else. So
yes,
I don't know. Speaking of burner, we can talk about the next two guys are kind of not similar in who they are, but similar that neither one of them did anything at the combine. So we don't have any sort of athletic measurables to go off of, and that is Bryan Edwards for one, and then the other one is KJ Hamler, right? I kind of put these two guys together because they're, in terms of their athleticism, we know nothing. What we do know is a guy like KJ Hamler, who is 5'9", 178, right? But when you look at him, I think that he is somebody that was obviously super. His speed translate. I know some people have tried to maybe call him Deshaun Jackson. I think that might be a little bit too high of praise, but I think that he's somebody again that goes to a team looking for speed, utilize and deploy him in many different ways to get the balls in his hands. And then you have Bryan Edwards, who I absolutely love Bryan Edwards. I've loved him since the moment I watched him. I know a lot of people talk about him and say that he looks very slow, that he's not going to be an athletic dude. I do know, take this for what it's worth, that I saw that one of the speed tracking sites tracked one of his runs he had this year, and he got up to like 22.8 miles per hour, which was one of the fastest of any player in the league or in college football this year. So I think he does have some speed to his game that people aren't giving him credit for. Now, people will look at his numbers and say, well, he didn't do a whole lot. A lot of his production came on screens this year, but that's more of I think a product of the South Carolina offense. We saw sort of something similar with Deebo Samuel as well. How they deployed him whenever he was in the offense last year. So he kind of stepped right into that Deebo Samuel role this year. But in terms of these two, just in terms of not having any sort of athletic measurables to go off of, how much do you weight that in, or again, not at all with either one of these two?
A little bit for both of them, more so for KJ Hamler than Bryan Edwards, because Bryan Edwards does possess one of the earliest breakout ages we've ever seen. I mean, he was doing that against SEC competition as a 17-year-old is unfathomable to be doing that early. He does have the size. He's 6'3", 212 pounds. whatever you perceive his speed level to be by watching him on film, we know he's not slow. You can absolutely see, and then you see his 46.2% contested catch rate. The dude, when the ball's in the air, he's another one of those contortionists of his body. He's very good. He's made some of the most ridiculous catches that you're going to see in a college game, just extending for balls, gives up his body for passes. He was a player who did return punts. He was used out of the backfield, like in those little jet sweeps. I'm fine with Brian Edwards. I would have loved to see, his athletic testing. I don't think it would have been out of this world, but I don't think it would have been bad. I think it would have just been like, okay, that's what we thought Brian Edwards was. Like, again, we double counted Henry Ruggs. I'm not gonna double knock Brian Edwards. I think he is who he is. KJ Hamler, a little bit different for me because he's 5'9", 178, and he wears number 1. Yes, it's very easy to physical comp him to Deshaun Jackson, but I wanted to see KJ Hamler's 40 time. I really need to know how fast he is, because if he isn't, I don't think he was faster than Henry Ruggs. I don't know if he would have been faster than Antonio Gibson or Denzel Mims. So if he's not the fastest or one of the fastest players out there, I don't know what I think, again, he serves a purpose in the NFL, and he's going to be very good for an NFL team, but consistent fantasy asset, if I had to bank on one of the guys that didn't test between these two, I'll take Brian Edwards. I'll take the production. I'll take that 6'3", 212-pound frame, and I'll take his versatility that I've seen over 4 years over KJ Hamler's 2 years of production and being so doggone small. I need to see how fast he is.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of his other stuff that he has, I mean, his 19.2 breakout age is terrific. He had the 4th most explosive plays, and he had separation on 64% of his targets, which is pretty insane as well. But yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Like, I think, a lot of the stuff is there for him, but I just don't know how well it's going to translate into the next level, and how teams are going to look to deploy him. So I think that'll be interesting. What do you think, Cody? I know you're the resident Penn State guy here.
Yes, I am. I think Ray made a really good point, though, because of the way that Hamler wins, you did want to see, like, even though you see it on tape, you still want that to be verified. You still want to know, okay, he has this athleticism. This is how he's going to win. This is how he's going to be used at the NFL level. With Edwards, I mean, that doesn't bother me, because with the main thing we're probably looking for is, like, we all want to see 40s, right? How fast are these guys? That wasn't Edwards' game. He's not a guy who's going to burn past you. I think he can get deep, against certain corners, and if he gets a clean release, or if he's able to defeat press, I think he can get behind guys in the secondary. But that's not how he won. I think Hamler might have a tougher time, because I think he's, my knock against Ruggs in terms of needing to be schemed certain plays, I think that's absolutely going to apply to Hamler. Ruggs is kind of on the borderline. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Hamler, I think he has to be schemed in space. With that frame, man, if he gets pressed, it's over. KJ, I love you, man. You were so much fun to watch at Penn State. But if a cornerback gets hands on you, I think that's where that play begins and ends for you, brother. I'm sorry. But Edwards, he's been a guy that I've been really high on this entire time. Do we want to see that so we have the full profile and so we can feel better about maybe comps and where they fit in? Sure. But I think Edwards has enough over his 4 years that there's really not much left, unless he came out and he put up a 4.8. You know what I mean? If he came out and ran something completely abysmal, then maybe you knock him down a couple of spots. But I don't think it was that. I don't think it was a 4.4 either. But I feel like a mid to high 4.5 was probably within his range. And the thing I love about Edwards the most is he put out the tweet referring to draft Twitter specifically, and that's been one of my favorite things, is seeing athletes at the pro level and at the collegiate level kind of talking with us or talking to us, and the fact that he referred to he had a tweet that was like it was something like, Oh, I see. Draft Twitter thinks I'm slow. Okay.
Yeah, I was actually, man, and I'm telling you, man, going into the combine, he was my wide receiver 5, and he was one of the players that I thought would shock some people at the combine. I know you're saying, mid to high 4.5. I was thinking he was going to crack sub 4.5. I really thought the same way that we were shocked about Jalen Reagor. We were shocked about Jalen Reagor not running 4.3, or we were shocked that Justin Jefferson ran a 4.4. I think Edwards was going to be the dude who left the combine having all the crazy buzz, because he does have the metrics to back the things that he did do on film. He's got that prototypical size. I thought he was going to put on an absolute show at the combine had he not hurt his foot. I was ready for people to be aboard the Bryan Edwards train.
Luckily, that didn't happen. I already had Denzel Mims taken away from me. At least I get Bryan Edwards staying a little bit low. So thankfully that didn't happen, man.
Yeah, so let's move on to a couple. Let's move on to Laviska Shenault, right? He is somebody that, again, that a little bit. I was a little bit surprised with his 40 time, but then it ended up coming out. I guess we'll have to give him a pass that he ended up. I don't think he ever should have ran at the pro day. Whoever gave him advice to actually go out and run, knowing that he had a core muscle injury, that he was going to need to get this taken care of, he should have just got it taken care of, because I don't think it helped him in his stock. I mean, obviously, the dude was deployed all over the field. He was used as a tight end, wide receiver, running back. Like, he was just kind of everything to them. And for me, I don't know why, whenever he initially got hurt back in November or whatever it was, why he didn't just get it taken care of then. Maybe you're ready for the combine by that point, but his combine did not help him. He ran a 4.58 40, and I think most people would have thought that he would have been better than that. His speed score was okay, 103.2. But everything else, if you looked at him, I just don't know where he's gonna end up translating into the NFL and how he's going to be used. Is he Deebo Samuel, where he's somebody that they are going to line him up in the backfield and use him as a runner, as a halfback? I mean, he had a pretty decent breakout age, 19.9, 35.1 dominator rating. He had 44 missed tackles forced, which is just shows you how good he is in space and what he can do there. But I am concerned with his injury history, and how much of that are you factoring into Laviska Shenault?
I mean, big time. That's a big part of my evaluation with him. You know what you're getting. Don't complain. Don't be upset when he's missing 5, 6, 7 games a year, because, I mean, listen, his injury history is already extensive. I mean, torn labrum last year. He's got a core muscle injury this year. I think there was something else that was wrong with him. And every single game, and I'm not exaggerating, that you watch Laviska Shenault play, he's limping off, missing series here and there. Just like, it just seemed like every time I turn on the tape, he was limping off the field and on the sidelines. And then, sure as the sun rises, he goes to the combine and limps off after the first 40-yard dash. And I'm just like, dude, the dude can't stay healthy.
So it's Sammy Watkins?
The thing is, I truly believe he's probably the most – I mean, he talent-wise, I think he's one of the most talented, what he can do with the ball in his hands, wide receivers in this class, period, when he's on the field. When he's on the field, he's a tank. He's a tank with the ball in his hands. He's versatile, again, when he's on the field. He just – in his style of play, he's not one of those receivers that's going to go out of bounds. He's fighting for extra yards. He's used as a freaking running back, as a quarterback. He just lends himself to abuse. And I just think that, a couple of years from now, we'll be talking about Laviska Shenault being that guy, man. If he can just stay healthy this year and put it together for a full 16, you're going to have a wide receiver. And we'll do it again. If Laviska could stay healthy this year, I'm just out. I'm out.
Now, somebody who also had the injury history was like a Deebo Samuel, and he's someone that I feel like once he's been in the NFL, we've forgotten about that injury history. You know what I mean? So if he's able to put that together, but like you said, that's a big if. He's had those injuries, and they seem to be something that pops up every single game on a weekly basis, questionable coming into it. Kev, you said you want to know who gave him the advice to run that 40. I want to know who gave him the advice to wear that Young Jeezy black tee.
Dude, legit. When I saw him, I knew something bad was going to happen. I was like, this is either going to be slow as shit. He's going to get hurt. He looked like he just was. This is what he wore in the combine with the number on it, just a black tee, gold chain, and he tears his core or whatever the hell is wrong with him.
Yeah, man. Do you have that shirt signed by Laviska? Does that have his signature on the back? Should you at least get that signed?
No, dude, I got this from Visca after he got lumped off the track in Indy. I was like, yo, Visca, let me get that blanket you're wearing. And he just tossed it over to me, man.
Hey, you got to respect the drip, okay?
Yeah, man. Visca. Yeah. Funny sidebar, but I swear I thought I was the only person that was just like, this dude have on a damn black t-shirt running the 40.
No, I mean, it stuck out like a sore thumb. Like, what are you like? You have linemen out there wearing, you know what I mean, like wearing the cutoffs and the slim fit. You have Visca out here wearing the Young Jeezy black tee. Like, dude, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, that wasn't going to end. It did not end well for him, and his draft stock is probably going to take a hit because of that too. He would have did better off not testing. He would have done better off not doing anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at least then you can be like, well, I guess we have to revert back to the tape. And like you said, with his tape when he's on the field and he's making plays is super. It's super exciting to watch, man. And I also think that that's also something that goes against him as well because of how he was used. Like guys are kind of dinging him because he's not super refined as a receiver because he was used in so many other ways. So in order for his fantasy stock to really hit, he has to be put in a situation where they're going to be willing to use him in all those different ways. So that's along with his injuries and along with the landing spot. I think the NFL draft is going to be something that's going to be super interesting for a guy like him to follow. Kind of moving on to the next guy here. The next guy, Ray, I want to tell you that I think you were the first one that I heard talking about him and beating the drum for him early on during the season when I was following the DDP. Brandon Aiyuk, he's someone that, again, talking about the podcast I was on with Dwight and J Mike and a couple other guys last night, I said the same thing then. I'm going to say it now. I don't know how to feel about Aiyuk. I don't know how to put my finger on him in terms of how I really feel about him, because obviously if you look at someone's highlight plays, you're gonna be like, oh damn, he's a baller. But like his like his plays were like, even if they're not highlight plays, like he runs those kind of in breaking to out breaking routes really well. I love how he does that. But like his plays where I'm like, oh shit, like that was a really nice play. Like if you watch his game against like Oregon, I think he destroyed them, if I'm thinking about that game correctly. And then you look at his game against like Michigan State from this year, and he was basically non-existent. So like for me, he's someone that I can't really pin down on how I feel about him and how I evaluate him. Kev, you talked about him earlier about, you know, how you feel like he's kind of today's NFL receiver in terms of how he wins and everything. And something that you were touching on earlier, Ray, was using the metrics and everything else to like really put together your comps and how you feel about guys. With the breakout age and as far as it concerns with Aiyuk, is that something you're knocking him for, or is the fact that he was the JUCO transfer, then behind Harry? Are you kind of waving that off? Where do you fall on Aiyuk in terms of the overall picture for him?
Brandon Aiyuk, gosh, there are just so many interesting cases in this class because, first of all, I really thought he was going to be a lot faster. I know 40-yard dash is not everything. I know we're talking about it a lot because that is the metric that we all want to see at the combine, but I thought he was a hell of a lot faster than a 4.5. And then his speed score is 65th percentile, but then his burst score is 90th percentile. And when you turn on the tape, that's what you see out of Aiyuk. He's a very bursty athlete. That's why he has so much success with screens, with out-breaking routes, with in-cutting routes, because, he doesn't have to hit top max velocity with those type of routes. And that's why you kind of saw that. As far as him being a JUCO transfer, listen, I prefer my players, I don't care if you're running back, quarterback, offensive lineman, D tackle, perform and produce early. True freshman, true sophomore season. Yes, I would like to see that happen, but he was a JUCO transfer, so I think context does matter. He did have to sit behind N'Keal Harry, and it wasn't him just sitting behind N'Keal Harry. I mean, he was kind of like, and I don't have his production stats from that year in front of me, but I don't think he was relatively close to Harry as far as being, an option and a target. And that's why coming into 2019, there weren't a lot of people, even a lot of people who follow the college game, who were really on Brandon Aiyuk. I think he's good. I think he does offer unique playmaking ability, and he is a special teams, like he's really good at punt returns, which is a fantastic way to get on the field. He produced this year. He produced and won a lot of the same ways N'Keal Harry won at, and I think he's going to have to grow at the next level and learn, but I can say that about 9, 10 other wide receivers in the top 10 as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's actually another one of the guys that I think are borderline first round pick. Like I could see him easily going in the first round. People have talked about that there's a lot of teams that are enamored with him and what he's able to bring to the table. And like you mentioned, I think there are certain qualities, like his usage on special teams, I think is one. And you're right, like his yards after catch was elite. I mean, 10.9 yards after contact. It is great. His dominator rating was fantastic. The one knock you could mention on him is the late breakout age. 21.5 is certainly not what you want to see. But at the same time, sometimes it takes guys a little bit longer. But I mean, the dude is absolutely dynamic. As soon as he gets the ball in his hands, I mean, the man's got a 6'8" wingspan, which is insane. But like I said, his explosiveness is off the charts. But at the same time, I think that he's very inconsistent at the catch point. I mean, he only caught 3 of 14 contested targets in his career, which is something that I think is a little bit of a red flag. But then you could go right back and say, well, I mean, he ranked 81st in deep targets this year, but he had 384 deep receiving yards, which shows you just what as soon as he gets the ball in his hands, how dynamic he can be. So I don't know. We'll have to see with him. But I do think that he is somebody that I think NFL teams are going to covet at the next level because of everything that he's able to do and how explosive he is in space.
There are plenty of big name scouts and analysts who said they have a higher grade on Aiyuk than they did on N'Keal Harry. So, hey, we'll see.
Yeah, what Jim Nagy said, it was every team that he talked to had the higher grade on Aiyuk versus Harry, which, I mean, I wasn't even that big comparatively on Harry as everyone else was last year. But like that to me just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, N'Keal Harry is better than Brandon Aiyuk. He was better than Aiyuk in college, in my opinion. And he did it at an earlier age, and he produced more consistently. So I think that's a silly comparison, to be honest with you.
All right, man. The last one of your top 12 here, a guy that both Kev and I really like, Michael Pittman. Smooth operator. He's also another guy who has who didn't really. I can't remember what his breakout age, but he didn't really have that big season until his senior year. The thing that jumped out to me about that is the fact that he did it with 3 different receivers his senior year, and he also has guys, like Amon-Ra St. Brown that I know a lot of Devi guys are pretty hyped about coming in. Because of all this, and with the combine obviously helped him out, is there a team that you think would really be able to help him out, like a landing spot where you think he might be able to jump up 3-4 spots in your rankings and maybe like consensus ADP or anything like that?
A spot that I would really like to see him go and be utilized on a young, fun, seems like offense. What I would love to see him be a complement to Courtland Sutton in Denver. I think you get you get those 2 big boy wide receivers out there with Pittman and Sutton. You've got the dynamic tight end and Noah Fant. I think Pittman would make an excellent complement to Courtland Sutton's versatility, because as big as Sutton is, man, that dude can play all over the field. He is an alpha number 1. I don't know. I love Pittman a lot. I like Pittman a whole lot, and being a USC Trojans fan, I got to see a lot of him on Saturdays. I don't think he's a number one, but I think he's a very solid number two wide receiver for a team. So if I was picking one spot, I would really like to see the Broncos get him. And, they're not going to do it in the first round, but maybe in the second round, take a shot on Pittman.
That's interesting, man, because a lot of I guess the receiver that we hear talked about Denver is Ruggs in the first round. So that's someone that's I honestly hadn't even thought about. Somebody that I would like to see him land with. If we could see the Eagles double dip with Jefferson maybe in the first and then Pittman on day 2, to kind of take over that Alshon Jeffrey role where he can get downfield, he can win those contested catches. That's something that I would like. We should have. Man, we should.
Look, I know you're an Eagles fan, but you don't. Every damn receiver, every damn receiver is not going to Philly. All right, you're not getting Jefferson and Rager and Pittman and Ruggs and whoever else the hell you want. Y'all ain't getting all these receivers. All right, I'm just letting you know that.
Is that unrealistic? Can that not happen?
No, it's not. It's not going to happen. And then, not to mention, Alshon, you still got to keep Alshon Jeffrey on your roster this year because you guys decided to pay Alshon Jeffrey a ridiculous amount of money.
What the fuck is this you guys stuff?
Okay,
I'm on the Pittsburgh side. What the fuck is it? You guys.
Oh, this is fun. I'm on the Pittsburgh side, not that side.
Yeah, fuck you guys.
I like Pittman.
They still have Deshaun Jackson too, don't they?
Yep.
So and JJ Arcega-Whiteside. So we don't. People
second round draft capital with Arcega-Whiteside. That's crazy. That is. I can help some of these teams out. You don't pick him in the second round, man. I don't know what Philly was thinking. That's just yikes.
With all these teams doing virtual drafts here, they should really probably bring like a fantasy analyst on for every one of them. We could probably help them out.
Yeah.
So. Like Ray, we were thinking about going Arcega-Whiteside here. No.
Dude, are you fucking kidding me? That's what I tell Howie Roseman. Like, really, dude? This is I don't even charge a quarter of what you're paying these scouts. Just hook me up with some gear and a couple of tickets, and I can give you all the draft advice you need. Man, I got a draft guide.
Somebody's who is good at like video stuff needs to figure out a way to put together like Ray just smacking the card out of a GM's hand when they're coming. Just
get that shit out of here. What are you doing, Jerry Jones?
The Kimbe Mutombo one?
Yeah, just no. I won't even talk. Just no.
But man, we're running a little bit long here. Let's get you out of here on this. You are the mayor of Devvytown, something like that. I think is what you're being referred to now. We're all getting kind of sick of talking about these rookies as it's leading up to the draft. Give us some Devy receivers that you're excited about, either some big names for us to watch out for or some sleepers. You kind of just riff here, man.
Big names: Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Justin Ross from Clemson, Rondale Moore from Purdue. Amon-Ra St. Brown, you mentioned him a couple of minutes ago. Everyone should know those names. But some guys that I think are really going to take off this year. Florida State's got a guy, 6'4", 215-pound Tamarion Terry. I don't think he's getting enough love. We're about to see this dude at 6'4", 215, probably run sub 4.4. He's got that type of speed. I thought he was going to declare and be a part of this 2020 draft class, and if he did, we would be talking about him right now. Rashad Bateman, wide receiver out of Minnesota. A lot of us wonder what happened to Tyler Johnson. What happened to the Tyler Johnson love? I'll say if you turn on the Minnesota Gophers tape and watch number 13 and number 6, it's clear as day who the better wide receiver is. Rashad Bateman is a dynamite prospect. He's going to be a first-round pick. Who else do you have? Seth Williams, the big boy wide receiver out of Auburn. Really, really love his game. Big physical wideout. I mean, the 2021 class, and I know people say, oh, here we go. We're doing it again. We're doing it. We can only do with what information is presented to us, right? And right now, if you're looking at the 2021 class of wide receivers, I'm telling you right now, I want that class over what we have in 2020. If, which we know it's not going to happen, if these guys declare, and some of them they have no choice. Tylan Wallace is a senior. Devonta Smith out of Alabama, he's got no choice but to declare. The LSU wide receivers are going to declare because that's what LSU wide receivers do. I think if we get a top 10 in 2021 that's projected, it's going to be better than the top 10 in the 2020 class. No doubt in my mind. When people are saying that Justin Ross and Amon-Ra St. Brown are the 8th and 9th best receivers, Tylan Wallace is the 10th best receiver in 2021, Tylan Wallace would have been somebody we'd be talking about as a first, second round pick in this class, and he's the 10th best in the 2021 class. It's about to be absolutely insane. The wide receivers, and thankfully, and I hate it's a boring position, the tight ends in 2021, holy shit. Fade tight end this year. Don't worry about Harrison Bryant, Hunter Bryant, Albert O. Wait until next year, because I promise you there'll be 3 wide receivers picked in the first round. Albert O, there'll be 3 wide receivers picked in the 3 tight ends picked in the first round next year. They're going to be at least 3 next year.
Why do we have to end this podcast? We are such a positive, and then we're going to end it on such a sour note trying to talk about Mizzou, okay? Everything Mizzou is great. I mean, Kelly Washington really should be a first-round pick this year. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why teams are sleeping on him, why no one's talking about him whatsoever.
Jeremy Maclin was good.
Hey, I'll never forget Dorial Green Beckham. The day that Dorial Green Beckham declared and went to Mizzou, was a national holiday around here. And then, of course, in typical Mizzou fashion, he shits the bed. So, it is what it is. It is what it is.
And y'all had that basketball player, too, who was pretty good and got hurt, Michael Porter. I know this is not a basketball podcast.
Oh, no, you don't got to tell me. Every bad thing that possibly could happen to Mizzou happens. We get shit on by so much as fans, as Mizzou fans. There is not a fan base in college that has it worse than we do, okay? Absolute worst. It's terrible. Our college basketball coach is a train wreck. He had 1 year, and ever since then he's been horrible. Our college football program, Barry Odom was terrible. Everyone thought this was going to be a bounce back year this past year. 5-1, but we all should have known. Who did we lose to? Wyoming, I think it was week 1 when we lost. Everyone was like, oh, this is going to be so bad. Then they go 5-1, and then just completely implode. And now we signed Eli Durkowitz or whatever the hell his name is. So we'll see what happens. But it's all bad Mizzou. See, you got me going.
This went completely left field. I apologize for bringing up Albert O.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
I feel that I felt that, Kevin. I felt your pain there.
I know. We, for a while, things were great for Mizzou. We had D-Line U where we were producing all these, top 10 picks and everything else. But our quarterbacks are Blaine Gabbert and Chase Daniel. So, it is what it is. But anyways, I really appreciate having you on the show. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was we've been live now for an hour and a half, and it's just felt fun just talking to, I always talk about how much I'm sick of talking about these guys, and then I'll come on a show like this, and it makes it fun to talk about them again and get excited for the last couple of days before I enjoyed talking landing spots. I don't think that happens enough. At this point, we know everything about these prospects. There's nothing I can tell you that is going to shock and surprise you. Let's start putting some pen to paper. Where are they going to be? Where are they going to land? So I appreciate you guys having me on. I enjoyed it. It was a good time.
No, for sure. And, like I told everybody from the beginning, they need to go check out your YouTube channel. The absolute fire, the napalm that you bring on that show is amazing. I love it. I know it was maybe a couple months ago that you just dropped complete fire on the fantasy community. I love it. I think more people should speak more freely about the fantasy community, because I think sometimes we get a little too much let's shake hands and all play nice. And in reality, it is still a competition. We're all competing against each other in what we do here, and there's not enough of that. I think we should support each other, not rip each other apart, but at the same time, we should still take this as a little bit more like a competition, because it is we're all trying to compete with to get listeners and an audience and everything else. And I do think one of my biggest concerns, not concerns, but complaints about the fantasy community in terms of the analyst side of it, is that there's a little bit too much sheep following, where people are too afraid to put out their take sometimes and stand by it because they're afraid to they don't want to go against the grain of somebody, or maybe if a guy that's flying up draft boards or ADP or whatever you want to If people are too afraid, if they're not in it or on it, they won't say anything about it because they're afraid. Hey, sometimes you got to drop your nuts on the table and let them know. That's how you feel, and that's how it should be. So, anyways, I just want to say I love your YouTube channel. People need to check it out. So,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. So keep doing what you're doing. I love it. Love it. So, anyways, you guys can find him on Twitter at RayGQ. And you can find his YouTube channel one more time at Destination Devi. Absolute killing it over there. And, shout out to your boy, too, who does all the background work as well, too.
Yeah.
He does great work, too.
Yep. Leave him alone. We need him. I need him. Jordan is
you
dope.
Gotta tell me.
Jordan is dope.
Yeah, doing all these graphics and everything else that you have to do with this stuff and video editing and everything else is a lot of work. People don't understand how much work that goes into it.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass.
No, for sure. Maybe Cody will one day, he'll help me as much.
I doubt it.
No, anyways. So, again, once again, everybody, follow him at RayGQ on Twitter. You can follow me at FantasyRad13. You can follow Cody at CKutzerFF. And don't forget, next week, we got a terrific 2 shows, both days of the NFL Draft. We got tons of guests coming on. We've mentioned Evan Silva, Graham Barfield, Elliot Christ, a whole cast of characters. We're going to be killing it. All kinds of guests that we have coming on. Nick Whalen, everybody. We're going to be doing that on both days. There's going to be alcohol. Might get a little drunk. Who knows? We'll see what happens. I'll try to keep my clothes on and my pants on. But if Jalen Reagor goes to the Chiefs, all bets are off. So anyways, I hope everybody has a great week. We will see you guys again next week. Peace.